Hello and welcome everyone to today's show. We're live and direct. I'm Chris and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you all here and introduce you to yet another chat in our Next Level Up series. Our main goal today is inspiration, but not just inspiration for inspiration's sake. We want to inspire you into action. So for the next 30 to 40 minutes, we're diving deep into solutions that will help you manage your properties smarter, reduce risks, and increase your revenue. And we're not here just to talk. We're here to give you actionable tasks and routines from the guys that you see on screen and things that you can apply immediately to improve your business. So if you can, please do take a pen and paper or a notebook out to make some notes. And do please drop whatever thoughts you have in the chat of this session immediately. Don't wait with your questions or comments. Just throw it all out so that we can use it during the show. To help us get underway, let me introduce you to these two fine gentlemen you see on the screen. We have Nils, the CEO of Minut, who is on a mission to help property managers to stay calm and happy and prevent problems in their communities. And we have Luca, the CEO of Smartpricing, who is an expert in setting up, scaling, and managing properties profitably. Guys, please, if you can, give us a short and sweet introduction to yourselves and the companies you created and why we're here. Starting with Signor Luca.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Christoph, for the quick and sweet introduction. I'm Luca, CEO and co-founder of Smartpricing. I've been working as a property manager for the last 10 years or more. I've been managing properties in Italy, UK, US, and I've seen a lot of crazy things, parties in our properties. And so that's one of the reasons why we are here today. And besides being a property manager, I launched with my co-founders and friends, Tommaso and Eugene, Smartpricing. With Smartpricing, we help managing prices, but not only prices, marketing as well. So marketing automation and several other tools that you might discover. And with this occasion, I can say that for the listener of the podcast, you have a 30% discount, and we will share during the podcast the link for the 30% discount to our products. And that being said, I don't want to bother you with this stuff. I pass it to Nils.
Thank you so much, Luca, and thank you, Christoph. It's great to be here today and get to speak to everyone. So, I'm Nils. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Minut, and we've developed a new type of privacy-conscious sensor that helps hosts and property managers keep an eye on their rentals by monitoring noise, occupancy, motion, temperature, cigarette smoke, and it's designed to prevent issues like parties and make sure that guests have a great experience with a protected privacy. And it's a simple and effective way to sort of stay informed about what's happening in your portfolio and make sure that your guests and properties are safe. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's nice to see freebies being thrown around already. We do indeed have a few more nice things upcoming, but the biggest thing is that whilst parties are amazing, everybody loves a good party. It can, of course, lead to challenges when you manage your properties, and that's why we named this session "How Big is the Party Problem?" You tell us, how big is your party problem in your properties? Please give us a little bit of guidance. And now that we know a little bit more about the gentleman on screen, please tell us who you are. What best describes your role? Are you a property manager? Are you working at service apartments? Do you own a hotel? How large is the size of the business? And of course, have you ever experienced any issues with unauthorized parties in your properties? Hope not, but the chances are that you have. And what are your biggest concerns when it comes to your guest behavior? Are you experiencing or are you concerned about noise complaints, for example, damages, big parties that are against the rules, and maybe even disturbing the whole neighborhood peace? And potentially, if you can throw it in the chat as well, how are you currently handling these issues? Because that's what we'll be going through today. What are the problems and how do we handle the issues? And what are very actionable steps and routines to bring the peace back? So if you can, do take a moment to put your answers in the chat, and we'll get underway with the gentleman, because to understand from for a very viewer's perspective, how big is the problem of unauthorized parties in short-term rentals, Luca? How have you experienced it yourself with your own properties? And has it evolved over time? Has it gotten worse, or what's the vibe?
It's a problem. It's a problem because when you scale, but even if you don't scale, the reality is that there are high possibility that loud people come in and disturb other folks. And I cannot count many times my neighbors called me on like the first day of the new year, rather than like on Sunday morning. It's so annoying, and it's emotionally annoying as well, because you feel like you like the people call you and you feel like, oh, you are the guy, you are the bad one, you are the one that made the noise that keep me up at night yesterday, and you feel very bad from an emotional point of view as well. So I believe this anything that can reduce this emotional pain, not just the pain for others, because it's very bad when someone make noise and you cannot sleep and you want just to sleep. Maybe you have family or whatever. You just need to sleep. So I believe it's something about being correct with other folks, other human beings. So I had many times this problem, to be honest, in UK, in LA, in Italy, anywhere, and I had properties in big cities. I mean, the problem is a bit less, let's say, in certain areas with lower density, with more, like, if you host more families, for example, it might be a little bit less, but still, like, it happens, and definitely it is something that in big cities happened to me a lot of times, and it caused me a lot of problems. Hope I answered the question.
Yeah. And Nils, how did you experience the problem, and why did you get involved? What was the moment that you were like, okay, I need to do something?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's a little bit different, actually, because it was in conversation with one of the first employees at Airbnb, and they were telling me how they had this issue with parties, and the problem for them in a way was that the only solution that hosts had to counter it was to put up cameras. And so they started putting in cameras, which of course is a gross violation of the guests' privacy, and that's not what Airbnb wanted to be known for. So this was actually one of the inspirations why I decided to start Minut, because I saw that there was a need for something, and it was something that could both benefit the host, of course. I mean, Luca's talking about like these issues with the neighbors, but it's also good for the neighbors. And I think in the long term, it's actually great for guests as well, because I think you can provide a better guest experience when you have tech and data in the property. But it's not a problem that's ever really going to go away, because it's about people and people's behavior. And I very strongly believe that there is not like good and bad people. We have all been there at different times, and what I think our role here as a company working with solving these problems is really to be very, very fast to respond when we see that a party might be starting, and to contact guests directly so that they can take the party somewhere else. Instead of having too many drinks in the flat and disturbing the neighbor, go out to a bar. And it can be as simple as detecting that within the first 5 to 10 minutes, send a message via Airbnb or whichever booking platform, or SMS. And you will find that most people are good people, and they only need that little nudge to realize that, oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about the neighbors because I'm in a new place. I don't really know. I might be jet lagged, I might be up at the wrong time of day. So I think it's not that kind of problem that's ever going to go away. It's always been there. Of course, we see that it's like certain types of properties, like larger properties where you might be able to bring a few friends, they are more prone to the issue. We see more problems where the neighborhood might be more concerned. So like I would say old European cities, where buildings are not really made for sound insulation, could be one. And of course, like New Year's and different types of holidays, like you'll see a lot more issues. But it is certainly one that we're going to be living with as long as people like to party, and I think and I hope that that's not going away anytime soon.
So would you then say that maybe it's good to party, but do it consciously? Yeah? We often hear parties are bad and like all these Airbnb hosts are bad, because like it might be a rhetorical question, of course, but correct me if I'm wrong, guys. The industry as a whole, of course, also gets an image, right? Like property rental, short-term rentals get an image of being a place where you go and do crazy stuff. How do you experience that? So what is the impact on the wider industry, and how are you involved with that?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the most important things, really, because I feel like we as property managers and hosts, we actually have a responsibility for our communities that we work in. And the problem is, like, if we ignore these things and we say, like, it's not my problem that my guests are loud and that my neighbors are disturbed. The next thing that's going to happen is that your neighbors are going to go to your city council. And eventually, when those complaints start coming, you get regulation. And that regulation is made by politicians who often don't understand the industry and the benefits that you get from it. And it can be quite heavy-handed. We've seen that in a lot of places. Amsterdam, I think, where you are, Christoph, for example. And it's, I think, quite unfortunate, because I think this industry is can be such a positive impact to local economies and to like a more sustainable way of traveling and tourism. But if it's regulated to the point where it's not viable anymore, because we have had too many issues with noise, nuisance, parties, that sort of thing, I think it's quite unfortunate. So the wider impacts on the industry is one thing, but I think we need to consider, of course, like the emotional impact on you as a host. This is stressful to deal with. The problems with the community, where like you might not want to be a neighbor to an Airbnb that has an issue, even if it's once or twice a year. That's quite a lot if you have a family and kids who need to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. And Luca, what is for you? Because completely hearing what you said earlier, like it's an emotional strain on you, but also on the business. What do you feel are the biggest challenges for you as a host when you're trying to prevent parties or noise complaints? And why? How did you get in touch with Nils, for example?
So I speak every week with a lot of property managers across Europe, and what they do is a lot of time is basically personal check-in. So instead of doing a self check-in, they go there, and I swear one of the guy that I spoke with a couple of weeks ago told me, I just go there and I scare them as much as possible. I swear God, really, he told me this, and said, okay. So I want just to make him understand. I love this guy, and maybe he's listening. So he's a good guy, so he cannot really scare anything. But but he said, yeah, go there and tell the guys that they cannot have a party in a good way, and it works. I said, oh, all right. I mean, if there any other way to do that.
What do you do if you don't have a big intimidating guy?
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. But it's like the point. His point was, I go there and try to create a connection with the folks, and try, as Nils was saying, like a message, like say, hey guys, you're a little bit too noisy. It is the connection piece, right? And so that's what they do. I mean, he asked me how we prevent. Another thing that we do that is in the past that it might be even bad for the business is avoiding one night stay.
Mm-hmm.
Not avoided in the weekend. So, but that's what
That's
we
a
need
good
to
point.
prevent that.
Yeah,
and so you don't do like Friday night, Saturday night. You don't do one. But yeah, again, it can be. Maybe there is a family that want to book for one night and pay a lot of money for the apartment and stay over the weekend, but they cannot because you're afraid of parties. And,
so as you cannot really close the door to people, you cannot filter out like what people you want to tell.
You are basically filtering out the clientele, right? Because you say, oh, you have to stay 2 nights. So what it means that you are targeting different kind of people, but you might have a problem with it. Someone booked Friday, someone else booked Sunday, and 2 nights. I mean, one night is once per night. Stay there, and so you just
that's already a very hard measure, right? That's already a very limiting measure. What are ways, Nils? What are some things you see in the data that you have, like in the patterns that you have? Can you say something towards? Is it mainly the Fridays? Is it mainly the one night reservations? And would you suggest to people to block the availability, or are there other ways to still keep the door open?
Yeah, so I think this is it's an interesting question, right? Because it's like you're giving up revenue, but maybe some guests are just not worth it, right? And finding the right balance there is definitely a difficult one. Unfortunately, I think what we end up seeing is that a lot of people just don't accept young guests, for example. And that's not very good if you're 24 and you actually just want to have a nice place to stay. So I think, presuming that a certain type of guest is going to be a problem, I think there are better ways, and I think it starts really with prevention. So you sort of make sure that you make this clear on the listings that this is a noise sensitive area, or that there is noise monitoring in the flat. We collaborate with Airbnb, for example, to automate that so that it can be seen. And then I think it's early detection. So you notice when something is about to happen, and that's the point where you need to message. Like when there's already 20 people in your flat, it's too late. So you start wanting to do it when people start playing music.
But can you give some examples? Like how do you monitor this? Do you have a detection of like, okay, they booked for 5 people, but now there's 8, so maybe something's up? Or do you measure the bottles of beer that they're bringing in? Are you screening their bags? How do you do it?
Yeah, no, we're not able to count the number of beers, but we are able to approximate when there is a crowd gathering. And so that can be an early sign. And then, of course, we measure noise levels. But even before the noise levels are high, we can alert you to a crowd forming, which is a feature we call crowd detect. And then on the data, I mean, you of course, like we see that you should be a lot more vigilant on Fridays and Saturdays, and we also see that about 2/3 of all the issues actually happen at night. And that's not when you want to be awake as a host and waiting for that call, which I think is another reason to make sure you automate a lot of these things. But it is quite widespread, right? Like we see it in urban areas with active nightlife, we see it in beach destinations, we see it in regular cities, and like when we survey, we see that about 44% of property managers have regular complaints about noise. So it's almost half.
It's fascinating. And is it for any type of property size? So you're suitable for if you have one room, one apartment, up to anything above, or would you say it's really a struggle if you are in a shared building only?
I would say, you have different levels of it, right? Like, so if you have like regular residential neighbors, then it's very important. Like if you haven't had an issue yet, it's going to happen, and you probably want to get ahead of that. If you have something that is like more like an apartment hotel style, then I think it can differ a lot between the types of rooms. So if you have like very small studio apartments, you're not going to get that much of a party issue because it's too small. And of course, the neighbors are other guests, so the disturbances are for different people every time, if it makes sense. So it's less of a pressing issue. We still have a lot of customers in that realm, but they are more interested in maybe the other features that we offer, like cigarette smoke detection or marijuana detection, where it can be an issue for cleaning and for the next guests that are coming. And then, of course, like we can for more professional managers, like they often rely on the Minut data to know when to schedule their cleaning, and when there is an opportunity to upsell a late checkout, for example. We can see that it's after the hour and there's still someone there, and now is a good time to offer them to stay another hour longer for 20 euros, right? Like that can be quite lucrative.
This is very nice. This is a very nice point. And actually, I would like to combine it. There were two things that you mentioned. One was Nils saying maybe somebody's not the right guest, which is, from a revenue standpoint, intense to say. Luca said something that was even more intense. He said just limit your one-night stays. In terms of this party problem and technology in general, what is the impact, Luca, on your income strategy? Like, how does it play a role in generating revenue for your business?
So it is more on the longer term, right? Because as a property manager, we manage mostly. It's not an example of how it backs directly in a bad way the revenue income, the revenue flow, and business. Because let's assume that we get 2-3 apartments, small building in a nice area that makes, I don't know, 50K each apartment per year, and the owner is super happy because he's getting a good rent, right? And we are happy because we are making a good amount of money, and we have good margins on the properties, and people start throwing huge parties. Good luck on the renewals of the lease of the apartments. And that's just a simple and stupid example, but I guarantee you that I had to discuss some time across the globe about this. Say, okay, it will not happen again. And I lost some apartments, some good apartments for this. They were generating good profit, and I had to just give them back to the owner that wanted to do long-term lease because of this. So he was happy about the money. We were happy about the profits. Customers were happy. Reviews were great. Still, like, didn't work out because of noise, and it can be noise because of parties. It can be noise because too many people inside the apartment, and like like smoke of cigarettes. So it's one example. There are other examples. And again, it's not just about money. There is like society impact, society profit, positive impact, right? So it's not everything about money, and money is just a piece of the cake. There's even a bigger piece of cake in terms of society impact.
It's brilliant that you say this, especially coming from a guy who founded a revenue management system and automated pricing. But the price that you pay if you don't manage it well can be very high.
We give lower price in the right moments, higher price in the right moments, so everybody's happy.
Nils, you are about prevention, right? So rather than stepping in when, oh shit, things are happening and it's too late, how can we get ahead as hosts and property managers of issues, and how can we get ahead of fines, of angry neighbors? What is a good thing to do now and as a routine to maintain?
That's a good question. We had I think very illuminating project that we did with a city in California, in La Quinta. So it's in the Coachella Valley, where there's a big music festival each year, and this city had tons of complaints, pretty much year round, not just when the event was going on, but year round. And the city hall was discussing whether to completely outlaw short-term rentals, which of course would have been catastrophic for a lot of business owners there, and not just like the property managers, but the business owners of local cafes and other types of businesses that actually depend on the tourism. But of course, like if you keep people up at night, they will eventually rebel. And so we made a project there where where the city actually mandated installation of Minut in all of the in all short-term rentals for monitoring what the impact would be. And we saw there, like very, very clearly, that the amount of complaints that the city hall or the council received, it went down with 85%. And so, of course, like there is still like some residual issues, but I think that's a very, very, very good result in the sense that we could measure it at the very end. Normally, we wouldn't know really like what happened in government, but this city was very progressive and helped us with that. So what we installed there was like Minut systems in each short-term rental that would, when detecting that noise levels increased outside of hours, it would contact the guest directly. I think this is a key part. So it would contact the guest directly and let them know that you're outside of hours and you're being too loud, and that actually helps people sort of self-regulate. And I think that is just one example. But if you do that, you are no longer annoying your community, and the community might see you as a positive influence alone. And then I think the pressure on regulatory issues are really going away. So that's what I believe strongly. I think the data is very, very clear in what it shows as well. But we just need to think. Of course, we need to think about the money and our own headaches. But I do think thinking about the community one step ahead is really the right way, the most cheapest way to make sure that we are a good and sustainable business.
This is a brilliant point that you hit here, and this is something to literally note down to anybody who's with us now or in a future recording. It's informing your neighborhood and showing the results that you did for them as a community that can brilliantly impact your how you're perceived by your neighbors and the wider community. And if you team up with other property managers in the area, like in then you can make very big moves. One of the things that you can, of course, describe to your community is what it is that you do. So you mentioned a few examples how you can monitor. My question is, if I'm a guest in a property of Luca's that has Minut active and I'm being monitored, what is the feedback? How do people in general receive the fact that somebody is watching you? Because it really has to do with the wording and how you bring it, right? So it needs to be spun in a very positive way. Because if I get a message, "You're too loud, I see you," then I don't think I'll be back.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're talking about exactly the wrong way to do it, and that's to send a message out of the blue. So I think the short-term rental industry would be nowhere without trust, right? Like, you are given the keys to your flat, sometimes your own home, to guests. So I think like, we need to really lean into that trust, and the way to do that is to communicate early and be very transparent about exactly what it does. And Minut does not pick up any data that can be tied to a specific individual. Like, so we don't have personal data. We have things like decibel levels. We have things like temperature. We have things like a crowd risk. And if we communicate this very early, I think ideally on the listing and the booking, that this type of system is installed. And if you are disturbing neighbors, you might get a text. Right? I think that is really, like, one thing. It solves most issues, actually. Like, it actually helps people self-regulate, but also that we facilitate the direct communication between directly with the guest, so that they know when they have been out of bounds. And we really can't do much about people who are hell-bent on destroying a property or throwing a big party, right? It's not really about that. It's about like, appealing to the good in people and letting them know where the limits are. At the end of the day, it's just a sensor that measures the noise level and sends a text to your guest if you've set it up the right way. It's not gonna, the police is not gonna show up, and there is not gonna be any sort of data that can be incriminating to guest privacy down the line.
I love what I'm hearing on a theoretical level, because I rarely experience any of these notes myself. Luca, with your experience and from your own business, but also from the people you speak with, like, what are nice, like, tiers or levels of dealing with not only the big parties, but also with the smaller noise complaints or the consumption of stuff that shouldn't be consumed in the apartment? How do you go about it? Do you start gently by informing them pre-arrival inside the building? Do you send them a message if you don't have the big guy intimidating you right at the check-in?
I just send the head of a horse.
What an Italian, eh?
Yes, I'm just joking about my origins. I mean, that's just a joke. And I can do it. I'm Italian. And you just called. I mean, it is easy to speak right now, right? It's like, oh yes, it's 12:30 p.m. I'm with two cool guys speaking about software, about technology, and cool things. So it's super easy to say what I would do in the best scenario. But let's assume that it's Saturday night. It's 10 p.m. and I've been working all the entire week like crazy, and doing check-ins or handling problems with apartments, like 100 apartments across the city, and looking at margins stuff, and super tired. It's Friday night, Saturday night, and the customer service is there and handling the thing, but I cannot do that. You have to go there yourself. Yeah, I would say that the best way is to just call them and just be as polite as possible. But the reality is that sometimes they might be really outrageous. So it's a good thing that there is a software that does that in a proper way to start with, and after you might get emotional. I got emotional in the past, to be honest, and it happens. I mean, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. is like, come on. Again, as Nils said, we had times in our lives that we had party, crazy party, right? And but now maybe not anymore, with at least myself. So yeah, but the best approach is that just send them a polite message 1, 2 times, 3 times, and call them in a proper way. And a lot of times, as Nils said, it works, and sometimes it does not. But I hope I answered the question.
You did. It's a very human answer. So it's a thing between the theory and the reality. Sorry, Nils, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, if there's one thing I want people to take with them, is of course that a little bit of prevention can save you a lot of headache down the line. So from our perspective, right, like if it is Friday night and you're on the phone to a guest, like we have failed, right? We should get ahead of that problem way in advance. And I think there are several levels that you do this. I think that a clear communication we talked about. We need to establish and communicate house rules and rules with noise and gatherings, like really at the point of booking. You need to do some level of guest screening, and then like Minut comes in. So we're at that level where when the guest is in stay, and here we have one layer of prevention where like we can talk about the system to the guest, and then if the guest is still not respecting the community, we can detect those issues early and communicate. And if you have all of these 3 or maybe 4 steps done beforehand, you should almost never have to take that very, very late phone call. And if you do, we have we have actually a call center that we also can connect, so that you don't even have to be the person on the phone. So we have a call center speaking many languages that can place a human phone call directly to the guest and catch those like last few bits that are not coming. But I really think like you don't want to have to deal with this, right? Like as a property manager, you want to deal with things that enhance hospitality, which makes the stay more memorable, which gets you that 5-star review. And you can't do that if you had to be up at night dealing with problems, because the next morning you're not going to be very, very fresh anymore. So that's what I would say. Like, implement these like layers of defense. Implement best practices at the booking level, at accepting the booking, at the check-in. Talk about the rules. Talk about the tech that's in there, and I think also proactively reaching out to your neighbors and letting them know that you're doing this, and that if they have issues, like this is what they can do. And if you've done all of those things, then you should get a peaceful Friday almost every Friday night.
Well, that's a nice view of the future. You mentioned something very nice. You mentioned how not to go at things alone, right? One is with your neighborhood, potentially also going at it with other property managers. How would you, Luca and and Nils, how would you recommend going at it if in your city, in your destination, you have new regulations from the government, local or national? Do you team up with others, with other property managers? Do you team up with tech partners like yourselves? What's the best way to go at it and not just boil in your own head, Luca?
That's a good one. It's a good one. And I mean, like, technology can help, and speaking with others helps, and stronger together for sure. Because the reality is, a lot of governments are really on this topic right now, and so that's one thing. So getting together is just to understand how to deal with the problems, ideas to face problems, I think. And second thing, to be stronger with public administrations, and to make them understand what is good and how to solve the bad.
This is a very nice point, and
it's more like a small commitments, small like steps towards these. Not like huge thing. Just there is like an association dealing with these topics. Great, jump on. Nice, pay the 50K. Pay the 50 euros per year, the 100 euros per year. Check the emails that they send you, and do a small thing for the bigger cause. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, every location is different. So you will have your local administrations, and some of them are very willing and open to discuss things, and some of them just tell you what to do. It is a big topic, looking at places like Barcelona, any European capital city, really. What does the future hold? Without imagining too much, Nils, where do you see that you as Minut, but noise monitoring in general, technology in general, to keep the neighborhood sane? Where are we headed?
Yeah, it's a big topic. I do think that the product works quite well, and so I don't know that there is like a lot of development needed to sort of solve the party issue and noise monitoring. But I do think that once we have in-stay data, which is something that has been a bit of a blind spot for many property managers for a long time, once we have in-stay data that protects privacy but still gives the host a level of insight that means that they can run their business better, I think there's a lot of opportunities that show up. And so one thing that we've done just at the end of last year, we launched a collaboration with Google Nest, where we connected the guest data that we have with the smart thermostats, and thereby we were able to decrease heating costs with 10 or 15% in a lot of properties. And that's a completely different use case, but it's one that is like unlocked by a combination of the data that we have and the AI analyzing that data, and the smart systems that can then control. So that would be things like a guest leaving the flat, but maybe they kept their AC on max, and we noticed that they've left, so we can turn it off. And so that is one area where I think there is a lot more to do. And I think with AI, we can get more and more precise detection of different events. And again, we can do this with preserved privacy, because we can have the AI running directly on the sensor, so no data has to even leave the flat. And that will enable us to unlock a few of these use cases, which I think is crucial for making sure not just that we are an industry that is a good influence on the community, but also a good influence on the planet, right? Like, I think we should all do what we can in order to decrease our carbon footprint and that sort of thing. So that's one area. Another one, I think, is just like elevating guest comfort, where if you take like really 5-star hospitality, like if you think about if you think about that, a lot of it is about knowing what the guest will want before they know it themselves, and to sort of get ahead and offer that. And I think that's another area where like in-stay data with AI can give you the right sort of triggers that you need in order to communicate the right thing to the guest at the right time. So having more sort of occupancy and activity based hospitality, that's another area where I think we can do a lot. Making sure that every guest get a good night's sleep, I think, is another one where like, again, you can use in-stay data to like make sure that you know that your properties are a great place to sleep, because you are measuring light and you're measuring noise, and when there are issues, you take action. So I would say those sort of general areas is where I see a lot of opportunity over the next 5 years. So increasing or making sure the guest experience is better, and also making sure that the properties are run efficiently and with a low carbon footprint. And I think in-stay data is really what unlocks a lot of these use cases.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And then going one step back from the future, back into the present, what are one or two things, first Luca and then Nils, that you would really advise or like press upon the audience to do into action right now, today, to create a nicer environment and for themselves running a business? That means having an efficient business and having an income generating business, of course, but that also is good to the neighborhood, to the environment. And I love that you just, Nils, mentioned the planet in general, because that is very essential, whilst also having your guests happy. It's a very broad topic, so cherry pick from it whatever you prefer. But what are one or two things that you really want to tell our audience? Luca.
So we spoke a lot about technology, about the stuff to do, and I just I now try to give suggestions and things that I made. Try to handwrite a piece of paper that you copy, you just print it many times if you don't want to write hundreds of these, and explain why, if you have a big party problem, write down why that's a problem with clear examples of how it disrupt the life of others. And something that I did in the past is offering some drinks, some shots in a bar close by. And it worked.
That's a very nice one.
Yeah, like with $10 and like a piece of paper, I got a good review and a party less. To just offer them like a drink at the bar and say, okay, you have a drink here. You know that you stay here, and they might laugh and say, okay, this guy is with us. And otherwise, you can always offer some marijuana, so they chill a little bit. I'm just kidding.
It's a very laid back recommendation.
Yeah, it's like they chill, right? If they smoke a little bit, and maybe they don't do a party, they just watch a movie and they all. But I've seen so many crazy things. So it's like in LA, it was like I saw them all. I cannot describe some stuff that we saw, but people jumping out of the window and people throwing things out of the window, people throwing street parties, and I believe. A lot of people would be very interested about the stories, but
that's for another time and another topic. We'll get to that. But what I just wanted to pick out of this, what you mentioned very correctly, is like understanding the problem, because that is something that also doesn't happen enough. You run into things, you get emotional, you have these conversations, but when do you actually sit down and understand what is happening, what is causing it, and how can I fix it? Nils, what's your best practice?
Yeah, I would say three things. I would say first is to set very clear expectations, communicate rules, and make sure this is on listings, etc. So that you have like a clear understanding with guests. And then I would say you use tech, like it's there, right? Like you can obviously do a lot of these things by hovering around or going and visiting and you yourself doing work. But I think if you value your time even just a little bit, I think you can save a lot of time and get a better outcome by using technology. So that's the second one. And then third, I would just say like engage with the guests, like proactively address things and have direct communication. And with those things, I think you're going to have a lot fewer issues. So pretty simple, I think. But I think if you do them before you have an issue, you're going to be living a lot happier.
I have to say, and both you gentlemen, these topics and your personal insights, the very grounded ones, but also the futuristic ones, because there was a nice mingle of both, were wonderful. And as a request on behalf of the audience, are you open to receive requests or recommendations for and practical processes and maybe videos from LA that Luca still has somewhere in an archive? Are you open to that? No. The second part, no. If you are open to receiving the kosher things, how can people reach you?
I write here my email. My email is here. And again, and for the listeners that are currently listening, and for the future ones, if you want to increase your revenue by over 30%, and have a 30% discount, we'll share in the comments the link to do so, just for the listener of the podcast. And or if you want to increase the direct bookings like crazy, and it's in the comments you can find the link. And thanks for watching. Super happy to answer to every question you might have about crazy parties and other not usual way to deal with this kind of problems, like offering free shots.
Fantastic. Nils, where can people reach you?
So email, very happy to receive email. I'm nils@minut.com. And we actually collect stories. So we love hearing them. And we have some...
No way, really?
On our blog. Oh, yeah. We have had...
I want to see that. I want to contribute to that.
We have had anything from cleaning staff sort of like living in apartments during the night when they're between guests, doing that for years, and to host sort of one favorite of mine was they had a big party, and of course like there was tens of thousands of pounds of damage in the flat, but they found this pair of like really expensive Balenciaga shoes. And they held them hostage until the guests were actually paying for the damage. Of course, like we often get in touch with people too late, like when they have had these stories and then they tell us. And then, of course, like there are fewer stories when you have solved your party issues. But that's I think a downside that most can live with. But yeah, I'm Nils at Minut.com, and I'm very happy to receive emails. But we also have a website where you can find out more about Minut.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of today's session.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chris and Luca as well.
Guys, very welcome. And to the audience, I hope you're not just leaving with ideas, but also with real actionable steps, either to take right away now or get in touch with the guys. To wrap up the steps that we noticed, automate, make the efficiency high, implement noise prevention, and security monitoring for peace of mind, and proactively screen and communicate with your guests. Because as Neil said it very nicely, it's about getting ahead of trouble and with the right technology, but also with the right routines and strategies, and just putting in the manual work. It's often very easily forgotten. You can maximize your income, minimize your risks, and make your business thriving and happy. And that's what it's all about. So a huge thanks to Luca and Nils. And we'll see you during future sessions in March for the next level up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christoph.